Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Colin Elkins. I work for IFS Middle East. IFS is a global supplier of ERP solutions. We have over 4,000 employees. We operate in most countries throughout the world, and we turn over around about $860 million. This morning's presentation really is about food and beverage and supply chains, and why food and beverage specifically is the most complex supply chain there is in the world. So why is it so? Well, really, food and beverage companies operate at much faster rates than any other type of industry. So discrete manufacturing, quite slow, whereas food and beverage, the speed at which we have to change, the speed at which we have to adapt our supply chains during pandemics or during industrial disputes is extremely rapid. Also, the predictability of the products we have, the materials we use, our natural ingredients, they change their form, their function. We get them from different sources. Our sources are global. Sometimes we're supplied from the northern hemisphere. Sometimes it's from the southern hemisphere. We also have shelf life to take account of. This thing with our products that typically they don't last forever. So therefore, when we're moving them around the supply chain, it's critical that we do this in an efficient, controlled and high quality way. And it's this quality and safety aspect that really plays to the last three there: authenticity, transparency and traceability, the three goals of any supply chain in the food and beverage industry. So let's look at each one of those individually. So authenticity. Did you know that 12% of all alcoholic drinks sold globally are said to be counterfeit? And that the total value of counterfeit alcohol alone is $1 billion. And it's not just alcohol, it's many, many food products around the world are not authentic. They are broken supply chains such that our counterfeit products can actually get into those supply chains. 94% of consumers, however, say that food authenticity is probably one of the most important things in their decision making. 37% of people will actually swap brands if they had more detailed product information. And companies like Johnny Walker here and Chateau Le Pain are actually putting near-field communication tags on their products so that customers can actually get the authenticity of that product, and that through the supply chain. The next one's transparency. Well, with transparency, there is a massive trend in meat-free, clean label, organic products. There's widespread disclosures by brands. Brands now are actually using this as a marketing tool to actually say their products are organic or they have no additives within their labeling. And this data transparency is absolutely key within the market. It's vital that manufacturers actually have this data and they can actually demonstrate this data on their products, whether that's scanning a QR code or whether that's allowing access to their website. Because generally consumers have fears over product quality and source. There have been so many cases in the past where the quality of the product and the traceability of the product has actually been broken throughout the supply chain. And the last one is that same thing, traceability. So how important is traceability? Well, let's look at some of the people who actually got it wrong and badly wrong. So Perrier, back many, many years ago, I think it was 1979, had to recall 160 million bottles from 120 costs at well over $250 million. 750 people in the mineral water division of Perrier lost their jobs. Why? Because they couldn't trace through the supply chain which particular batches contained the contaminant, which was a glycol, which was put in, unfortunately, by a cleaner. If they could have tracked that back to that individual batch, none of that would have happened. Peanut Corp in Canada, they recalled 3,200 products and caused 8 deaths, sickened 600 people in 46 states because they couldn't do a recall, because their supply chain was broken. And the last one, the one that amazes me most of all, Tyson Foods from the US, 11 million pounds of food, 6,000 tons of chicken strip products were recalled because they couldn't track it through the supply chain. And the USDA in America actually recall every 3 days. And these are large recalls, these are not just small ones. So the supply chain is actually pivotal. So why it really matters is the fact that it is a legal requirement. There are standards out there in terms of the quality, the authenticity and transparency of products. We have FDA, We have BRC, we have European standards, we have global standards. We have things like RSPO, the Roundtable for Sustainability of Palm Oil. You know, you cannot trade with certain retailers if you cannot justify that within your supply chain, you have control to RSPO standards. But it's more than that, because having all that data and sourcing all that data is actually quite difficult. But the benefits of having it in a digital format are quite dramatic. There is reduced waste. There is the reduced recall exposure. And that, looking at those previous examples, most of those businesses nearly went bankrupt. Well, Perrier did actually go bankrupt. The speed of recall. In a digital world, you can recall a product literally in seconds. There are no paper chases. It is just a case of pressing a button, full traceability, top to bottom, throughout the supply chain, and linked to your suppliers and to your customers to give you that full auditability that you need today to generate and have that authenticity of your products to your customers, and to know that the products and the ingredients that you're purchasing are authentic and have come from the source that you're expecting them to come from. Because it will be your name that will be on the recall when it happens. So having that control over your suppliers as well as your customers is absolutely key. But consumers want that transparency. They want to see the supply chain now. They want to know the provenance of the product, not just who manufactured it, but where the manufacturer got those ingredients from. Were they ethically sourced? Were they fair trade? Did they come from regions in the world where water is at a disadvantage? It's also a necessity to trade. Nowadays, you know, we do have this requirement from many retailers out there who want to be seen as being sustainable, actually forcing, you know, these controls on the supply chain for quality and safety back to their suppliers. And the other nice thing about having it in a digital format is it is a scannable solution. Yeah, you can scan the products. You don't have to enter that data manually. You can just use barcode scanners, etc., to manage the data. And the last thing is it's very much transactional based. It's as you're doing the job. You know, you're not actually having to do this separately anymore. You're actually doing that in a transactional format. So supply chains are really, really key in getting us to have this quality and safety and knowledge of transparency, authenticity, and traceability through the supply chain. But there's some interesting lessons that we need to learn. And these lessons have been caused by a pandemic, something that was unexpected. And one of the things that we find throughout supply chains are things like these things that come out of the blue, things that do come out in a supply chain that we weren't expecting. So how can we mitigate against them to ensure the quality and the